Thank you. Thanks for coming out tonight. And I just want to publicly thank Peter for putting out Censored 2009, and not just because he printed my article about the Gaza hospital situation in, I think, chapter 17, but because of the ongoing work that he and Project Censored continues to do. And, you know, sometimes when we're looking for a story, even, we flip through the Project Censored book, and there's stories that we've even missed because, you know, it's kind of like triage at Flashpoints. What's going, you know, sorry. I was just saying it's like triage at Flashpoints. We have this 1 hour, 5 days a week, where we get to report on what's not being covered. And we get phone calls from all over the world all day long from people saying, this story is important, this story is important, and every story is important, especially when the corporate establishment media fails to cover them. So I just want to say thank you for Peter's work. You know, that word, we hear a lot of, you know, people talking about mainstream, the mainstream media, and a friend of mine reminded me that actually we should be talking about, it is the establishment media, because we're the mainstream. We're the people, the majority in this country, I believe, across the place, who understand that stories like these are not being covered, and we're being told a fraction of the truth. Sometime, most of the time, probably not even the truth at all, because it is the 5 corporations who own the television and the radio and the newspapers and the magazines that are intentionally biased towards serving the interests of the corporations. So we have to reframe our language when we talk about what we want as a media. We want to be uncorporate. We want, as Dennis said, to hold the centers of power accountable. We need a press that is serving the people and not the corporations. And like Cindy said, we need to be able to make that a reality, and I think we can if we keep pressing them, if we keep hounding them to, you know, to divest from the corporations, then I think we have a chance. But in the meantime, I work on the issue of Palestine, which is a scary little subject when we talk about what's not being covered. Even in the so-called alternative progressive press, people are very afraid to cover Palestine because it is so washed with kind of, you know, this a lot of racism and stereotypes. People are afraid to get their feet wet on the story. And there's only a handful of us journalists in the Western world here, the so-called Western world, who cover Palestine as it should be covered, covering the voices of the people who are suffering the most, the Palestinians in refugee camps, the Palestinians who are being ethnically cleansed, the Palestinians who are being dispossessed as we speak right now. I was covering the story of what's happening in Akka, which is inside what's considered to be Israel right now. Settlers coming from Hebron in the occupied West Bank are motoring up the coast to go and firebomb Palestinian-owned homes inside Israel in this one neighborhood in Akka, a beautiful coastal city. There is ethnic cleansing taking place. People don't want to admit it. People don't want to call it ethnic cleansing. People don't want to call it apartheid. People don't even want to call it occupation. It's always disputed territories when we see it in sometimes even in the alternative press. You know, there's so much to talk about when we talk about Palestine. I think the Democratic and Republican candidates, the left wing and right wing of the corporate party, basically, they have identical policies when it comes to Israel. They have identical policies, and it's really interesting how, because now the Israeli state is they are pretty sure that either Obama or McCain will get the presidency, that they have now blown open the door to completely disassemble a one-state solution if we don't start speaking up, if we don't start holding the centers of power accountable, that eventually apartheid will be completely sanctioned, with borders, with a Palestinian state and an Israeli state, and the Israelis get to, this is happening in the walls of, inside the rooms of the Knesset. People are actually saying that once there is an Israeli state, the Palestinian citizens of Israel, of which there are 1.5 million, 20% of the population, will then be transferred to what is considered a Palestinian state. We cannot let this happen. This is the 21st century, and ethnic cleansing, apartheid is still going on under our noses. We couldn't stop it 500 years ago in this country when it started, but we can stop this one that's happening right now. So that's a story that we all need to keep on our shoulders. It's a story that I'm so glad that all of us here on this panel have kept abreast of and understand the magnitude of. And so keep watching it very closely, and please keep hounding your representatives who are signing the military contracts that go to Israel. $6 billion a year goes to Israel. You know, all of the weapons manufacturing companies from this country have incredibly enormous contracts for the Israeli military. I was just in Palestine in June, and I remember walking down the street right after an Israeli invasion of the refugee camp that I live in when I'm there. And I was stumbling over gas canisters, tear gas canisters, that were being thrown by the Israeli military into throngs of children who were throwing stones. And it said made in Kentucky or made in Kansas. So people understand that. And we can't let this issue go. We can't, if Obama gets elected, it's the same as if McCain gets elected on the issue of Palestine and many other issues for that matter. We need to hold the person accountable who's occupying that White House seat. So thank you.